first couple of years I came to the center back there on 17th Avenue, and I've told some of you this before, I cried for 2 solid years, often opened up by Amy's music. So I'd hear some lyrics and the music would get to my heart and I just cried, releasing whatever I had been doing up until then and accepting in my heart, not something from outside of me, but just really realizing that I always had been a spiritual being, and this was a home where I could know that and experience it. It's my great pleasure right now to introduce our guest speaker for today, Reverend Nadene Rogers. Reverend Nadene is someone who has absolutely known that, and all the time that I have known her, she is a spontaneous, think outside the box individual who is absolutely bringing joy to the world. Some of you will remember her as the lovable Louie, the clown. So she has worn a red nose and used the profession of clowning to bring joy. She started a center, founded a center here as the founding pastor and senior minister of the Joy of Life Center, 2002, I think you said. And she's now the interim minister at White Rock, BC, as they are moving into a new expression. And Nadene is just always someone that to me is very powerful and very willing to really express herself and be fully who she is. Reverend Nadene, will you please join us? Hey.
Well, it certainly is old home week for me. You know, the last time I took this stage was, I think, a couple of weeks after I had retired from my pulpit at the Joy of Life Center. And I was a bundle of emotion, not unlike this moment. Yes, I've done a lot of growing, but you know, when emotion grabs you and opens your heart, it's not always easy, nor should it be necessarily easy, to be able to grab on to a stream of consciousness, shall we say. And so I welcome this moment, and I receive this moment. I had so many great hugs when I came here, and I thought, of course, why did I ever leave? But of course I know exactly why I left. I mean, I could go all the way back to getting my first license in this center on 17th Avenue. Reverend Marjorie and Reverend Connie Phelps were a year ahead of me. And boy, those were the days, eh? Reverend Carol Carnes, and oh my gosh. We've been through a lot of transformation. I see members of my former board sitting here, members of my former congregation sitting here. And you know, we're all one community. And that's probably the most touching thing of all. I want to honor Dr. Pat Campbell. I've seen a lot of transition, not only in the Calgary community, in the centers for spiritual living now, but I've also seen it in the innumerable centers throughout our movement. 10 years I spent as chair of the Phoenix Bridge, which supported and gave resources to ministers in times of challenge and change. And many, many, many churches are small. Some are mighty, some are thriving, many are not. I've seen a lot of pain. I've seen a lot of dashed dreams and hopes from new ministers. I've seen a lot of senior ministers who are still working on their stuff. Yes, we all work on our stuff. but I'm saying in a way that really does not really serve the betterment, the highest and best of the collective consciousness in a way that's life-affirming. And I just want to honor Dr. Pat Campbell. I know that when she came here, it was a rough start. Yeah, very hard to follow in the shoes of somebody else, especially someone who was so highly regarded and very powerful. And you saw her power rise. You saw it rise slowly, intentionally, and with great love and commitment. And this center, not because it's the oldest center or the biggest center, but this center has a sense of community and intention and higher consciousness than I really have met in my journey of 21 years in the ministry. So I want you to thank yourself and Dr. Pat and all your ministers and practitioners who are here for a very specific reason. So today, I'm talking about, is there a light here? Yes, oh, there it is. I just want you to know I have one contact in and one contact lost. So this doesn't really help me much. Maybe I won't use the notes at all. Anyway, what I'm talking about, that's probably a good idea, is having your cake and eating it too. And the reason I'm talking about this is because I've always wanted it all. Anybody out there? Why can't I have it all? And you know, you get moments, right? The Buddhists say you get moments of spiritual insight. Those are those great aha moments. And you go, why can't I just stay there? But they're not spiritual realizations. Spiritual realizations take time. They need to move into the very, roots of your being and the tips, as Dr. Thomas More would say, the crack in the cosmos. They need to fall into that mystery. And it takes us time to lean into that mystery and learn how to love it. It takes us time to know how to walk. One of my favorite sayings is, and I know you're all full of humor today, so you'll probably get this, is walking with one foot on each side of the fence. And to my dear friend, Reverend Doug, often that summarizes into hell in the hallways. Right. So one of my passions as a minister, because when I went to ministerial school, they always said, well, you got to have one message, Nadene. And I'm like, really? I got my finger in 25 pies. How can I have one message? My one message has always been this. And Sharon will know it from clowning. You've got to embrace your humanity to know your divinity. I'm still on that. I'm still learning that. I'm opening my heart to that. And so have your cake and eat it all kind of means that. It means how to be in the world and love it, meaning how to balance or merge that idea of being in the world and not of it at the same time. It is possible. It is possible to have your cake and eat it too. It is possible to have everything that you desire in this world because you are the co-creator of your life, and we all use the infinite mind at our own discretion, through our own filter, at our own whim, in our own mood, however we wish to use it in that moment. One of the things I've come to understand in order in my own, or to self-actualize myself and just come to peace in mind and body is that I need to lighten up who I believe I am. And these last 4 years of being away from pulpit ministry, I've had even more of an opportunity to do that. Many days ongoing in my jammies. Many days digging into the Haagen-Dazs pint of coffee ice cream. Many days not answering my phone or quaffing. Many days on the floor. Drooling. Very interesting. To get to a place where you don't even need thought, where you don't need to express, where you don't need to stand for something, where you don't need to have a purpose, where you don't need to do anything except allow God to breathe you. That's why I left my pulpit. I knew I was on a trajectory that I could not control, I could not plan, but I had to follow because it was leading me to that sweet, sweet place that we all talk about, that we all study for, that we all support each other in, that we all hunger for. It's life begetting itself, in itself, of itself. It is called oneness, where nothing else lives outside of the experience of you existing as enough in that moment. That was it. And you know, after being a clown for 20-some years and putting on the dog and showing up, dressing up and showing up, it was that moment when I knew I didn't even have to get off the floor, that nothing needed to change. For me, to breathe into who I was, where the joy rose for the first time in my life. The joy rose. That was an amazing, amazing moment. And what happened for me, I birthed this idea of, yes, I can have it all and eat it too. Because there's nothing now that lives outside of me. All I have to do is open and receive it by opening and receiving me in the present moment in whatever state I might be in. So now I'm right back full circle to embracing my humanity. Drool. To know my divinity. Didn't think I was going to share that story. But you know, it's about vulnerability. It's about being open enough and not vulnerable when you're not feeling at one with self. See, when we're at one with ourselves and we can feel that mind-body connection and we're at peace, then we can be authentic. Not authentic as to I want to act as what I want to become, but authentic in how I am feeling, what I am thinking, and how I'm experiencing life as me right now. That kind of authenticity. Not about becoming. It's not about, by the way, self-improvement, which the world would have you think it is. Even the food industry, right? Every commercial industry, every government is always trying to make us believe we want something we don't want. What we want really isn't even to find an answer. It is to live in that question, because the question is the expansiveness of who we have come here to be as an individualized expression of the Holy One. We want to be fully alive. But here we are, we're taxed with this thing. We're taxed with this thing. It's called our mind. Right? It is the glory and because it's the gate to heaven and it's also the gate to hell. Right? Our mind will have us believe that there is something we're missing, something more we need to do or be or say or think differently or act as in order for us to have that experience of peace or nirvana or joy or be in the position and poised to attract the abundance of the universe. Everything to me is always shouting at me and crowding my brain that this is the message, that I am not enough. And here we are in a spiritual teaching. That's why we're on the spiritual path, is to learn to exist as if we are enough. Because we know somewhere in the deep depths of our soul that that is the truth. Having your cake and eating it too means having your cake is understanding who you actually are in relationship to the whole, into that which created you, who you are in relationship to this wonderful universal creative process that works in, as, and through you. Eating it too means welcoming it and receiving it, because you can't have one without the other. God doesn't know itself except by means of us, and we don't know ourselves except by means of understanding that we are divine humanity. Not, here's our humanity, oh, please, oh, well, I'm just human. Please erase that from your mind. And, you know, we're over here and we're human over here, but oh my God, I've had this beautiful moment of self-acceptance and self-peace and enlightenment. I've made it, and then I haven't made it anymore. I'm over here again, you know? So what is it going to take to have your cake and eat it too? Well, I think we look at things dualistically. It's like out there, in here. And in our teaching, we say, of course, as did the Bible, as within, so without. So we spend a lot of time going in. We spend a lot of time going in to try to figure out why we can't come out. I'm sorry if I'm not making sense. It's my 4 years off. But, you know, it's all the same thing. So this is what I figured out. Just be out. I mean, really, how much time, and I'm not saying don't meditate. I'm not that irreverent. I'm not saying don't do spiritual practices. Yes, because those are the moments you still yourself and that you're alone with yourself and your God, whatever that is to you, right? Those are the moments you need, right, to build your resolve, to build your conviction, to come home to yourself, to have that sweet space. I was going to say that no one else can get at. Isn't that interesting? Because that's how I was when I went through ministerial school. I would not treat out loud. It took my teacher all the way through Science of Mind 1, Science of Mind 200, that's 8 classes, that's 32 weeks, and partway into practitioner school, or level, for me to actually open my mouth and pray out loud. I was not going to give up that which was the most sacred thing to me, to anybody. I was vehement. And you know, to this day, I still get nervous about treating. Isn't that interesting after all these years? But go in. Yes, go in. Go in, but don't use it as an escape. Don't use it as a reason to protect yourself. Because this is the other thing I've figured out. In order to be authentic, you need to be vulnerable, correct? Really. You kind of have to show who you are. So as soon as that starts happening, the mind says, ooh, that might be the mind of my mother, who says, Nadine, don't be too open, don't share too much, because someday someone will use it against you. Okay. I didn't listen to her. And I did listen to her, and I was very guarded, like most of us, for most of our lives. Clowning kind of shook it out of me, but then I had to take the costume and the mask off. We're all where we are in that path. We all want the same thing. We all want to be fully expressed. We all want to feel fully alive. I know that we're all there. But what I realized was I was still, and that's why I'm doing Dissolving Our Defenses later, I'm still attached somewhat to getting my needs met from outside me, because somewhere in me I still believe I'm not enough just because I exist. That there is something missing that someone else has that I need to know about or get more of. It's a person, it's a system, it's a job, it's whatever it is. It's a way of praying that might be different. It's a way of meditating that might be different, that might help me come to the place of this full realization that I'm absolutely fine the way I am, and I can accept myself, and I can accept life the way it is, and I can just get on with enjoying life. Why? Because I have needs. We all have needs. Not all of our needs are based on truth of who we are. They're based on fear of who we believe we are not, right? So when we go in and do our spiritual practice, we get more in touch with, we get more honest with our values, and then we understand what the needs are. And by the way, needs are great. Desires are great. You know, the Buddhists always said desire is the path to suffering, you know. But I think desires are fabulous because they start telling us, like the ego, right, what we think we're missing, basically, what we want more of. And that grows us. And that's our natural evolution. We don't ever go back. We never shrink. Even if we may hide, we still don't shrink. Why? Because the universal creative process is always moving for our highest good in, as, and through us, whether we're aware of it or not, conscious of it or not, willing to accept it or not, resisting it or not, it's still happening. You can count on it. So anytime you want to jump on the train and go for a ride, you can. So I realized I had attachments out there because I had needs that were based on my belief I was not enough, which really made me more vulnerable because I could not be all of who I was in my authenticity because I didn't think I was enough to be that. So with my attachments to certain needs, I had to be a certain way. And when I had to act a certain way, I felt vulnerable in the sense that people would really see who I really was and then not like me because I really didn't have the goods that I could talk that I had, right? Because all our life we create this identity. And we work hard for it. And we want to protect it. Well, what if our identity is just a divine spiritual being expressing on the earth? What if it's nothing more than that? And I know what I'm asking you to think. I know that it's like, oh my gosh, all my kids and my house and my car and my jobs and my dark nights of the soul over and over again, and everything I've done to try to establish a solid identity and image to be able to walk in this world with ease. I know what I'm asking. I'm really asking you to let it all go. God is found by subtraction, not addition. Amen. I can hear it rumbling out there. Where's the amen? I can hear it. Having your cake and eating it too. Oh my God, let's have it all, folks. Not go after it to get it, but be that which you think you need from the outside world. If you need more love, we hear it all the time, but we don't we take it to mind, but we don't really take it to heart. You're not missing love in your life. You're not missing anything. So be those things you think you aren't. Try it on for a moment, an hour, a day. In the easiest of relationships, in the hardest of relationships. Start slow, take one step, and then one more step. There is a law of sacrifice that says, glasses, notes, I know what it says. Just give me a minute here. No, the law of sacrifice says in order to gain something of value, you must lose something of lesser value, okay? Now, we often think, because we think with a dualistic mind, this or that, good or bad, right or wrong, and I've had, as I said, fingers in 25 pies, probably because I didn't want to miss anything, but I also thought something was missing. I never wanted to make a decision. Anyone like that? Because you weren't sure if you were going to make the what decision? Thank you. The right decision. And then what we learn in this teaching is there is no wrong decision. It's just a decision. It's just something you have decided to put your energy and focus towards at this time in your life, which you can change at any time. Unfortunately, most of us change it very quickly and don't see things through to fruition. I think inherently that happens because we think that if we focus over here, then we can't focus over there. I even waited to get married till I was 50. I couldn't even decide what sex I wanted to marry, what gender. Why? Because I wanted it all. I didn't want to experience just one thing, because why? Then I wouldn't be experiencing another thing, right? But the root of that was, if I chose one thing, I couldn't have another thing. I had to, if I gained this, I had to give this up. So here's what I've discovered about that. That we always get our needs met, whether in a life-affirming way or maybe a life-denying way, one that builds up our belief that we're enough or takes it down. But one thing I know is that I'm always expanding, and that there's a higher power for good in me that is always living in, as and through, and moving me. And so when I know that, that's having my cake. When I can count on that, then I can do whatever dance I need to do in order to align with it and move with it and flow with it. So when I make a choice, all I have to say is this choice coming from a fear-based need or a truth-based need. So an example would be, I'm not enough, or I am enough. There you go. So when I am enough, I really don't need very much from anybody or anything. When I'm not enough, I do, right? So if I'm moving toward that and I'm gaining something, I'm making a decision which is based on a value of that I am enough, then how can I lose anything? I can't. All of that I have been is wrapped up, and it becomes a springboard to now what I am expressing and therefore experiencing. So we need to learn to get our own needs met and not have the expectations. And when we do, we're not vulnerable in a scary way. No one can use us against ourselves. We are in our power, and we can afford to live what we teach and preach. We can afford to live the dream of becoming right in this moment. And the boundaries, I'll tell you about boundaries. I always thought boundaries were like this, for protection. But now I understand my boundaries are, no, that's not mine. No, I am happy to support you in doing what you would like to do in your life now, but I don't need to make that personal. No. And that's not separating myself from somebody. That is bringing myself closer, knowing that the person that I am, that's standing in front of me, that I'm having this conversation with, that I think is the other, really isn't. So it all moves back to me. Now, I'm not sure how long I have to talk, and since I've been off book, I think it's time I need to close, correct? Okay. So much to say, so little time. Okay, so I'm going to close with a story. Now, some of you heard this story before, I know, but it's a precious story, and I think it matches many messages. It's about the woman on a path, humbled, without much, and she's just kind of hanging out there and watching life go by, and this man comes to cross her path, and he's obviously hungry and thirsty and not in great shape. And he looks at her and he said, "Please, is there anything that you have for me to eat? I'm so hungry." And so she didn't say very much. She just took a bag that she had with her and she opened it and she let him reach inside. So he looked into the bag and he went, "Oh, there was some food there and other things." And then he saw a precious stone. And he picked the stone up and he walked away very quickly, thinking to himself, this stone is so valuable. I can get so much food. I can get lodgings. I can get everything. I'm going to take this stone and my life is going to be grand. And he very, kind of said thanks and went on his way. Well, a couple of days passed, and he came back to the old woman, who was basically still there. Kind of like God. And he said to her, I want to thank you so much for being kind to me. And I took the stone from your bag, and I took it because of XYZ, and I want to give it back to you. And so she didn't say much. She just opened her bag, and she let him put it back in. And he said, "It is so precious, and you just let me take it." But what I've realized over these last couple of days is I don't want something of value that can bring me something of greater value as far as food and all this other stuff. What I really want from you is to know what it is within you that let me take your most precious, valuable. That's the state of beingness. I'm not even going to say consciousness, because that goes without saying. Holmes says you only know what you can demonstrate. And if you can be that, whatever that sense was that fellow had about that old woman, everything else shall follow in ease, in joy, and in grace. Thank you for letting me be here. And so it is.